You wake up already tired, not in the body, but in something deeper, as if your own life were heavier than it should be. You move through the day performing gestures you no longer feel, repeating thoughts you no longer believe, obeying habits you secretly despise. You call this normal. You call this adulthood. But the soul knows another name for it. If you ignore this condition, it does not disappear, it settles. And most realize what it has done only when the inner damage is already complete. You may think this does not apply to you. You may say everyone feels this way, that suffering is simply part of being human. That is the most dangerous illusion of all. When pain becomes familiar, it stops being questioned. And when it is no longer questioned, it becomes a silent authority ruling every choice you make. This is not weakness, it is conditioning, and you have been living inside it for years without noticing. The illusion presents itself as endurance, as patience, as spiritual maturity. It whispers that you must tolerate what empties you, remain loyal to what diminishes you, and call resignation a virtue. You feel it as a constant background pressure, an atmosphere rather than a thought. It shapes your relationships, your ambitions, even your idea of who you are. You adapt to it, you organize your life around it, and slowly you forget that another state was ever possible. In theosophical language, this illusion is not an enemy attacking from outside, it is a field you breathe, a subtle agreement between the lower nature and the world's expectations. It does not shout, it normalizes. It teaches the soul to survive instead of to live. Under its influence, suffering is no longer seen as a signal, but as identity. You begin to say, "This is just how life is." That sentence is the lock. There is an old symbolic image found throughout esoteric teachings, a traveler walking in fog, adjusting his steps to the terrain he cannot see until he forgets that clarity ever existed. He no longer seeks the sun, he seeks better shoes. He calls adaptation wisdom. In truth, he has surrendered his direction. The fog does not harm him directly, it convinces him to remain. This is where the real pain begins, not dramatic pain, quiet pain, the pain of inner betrayal. You sense that something in you is being ignored, postponed, silenced. You consume spiritual ideas, self-knowledge, explanations, yet your life repeats itself with cruel precision. The same emotional patterns, the same exhaustion, the same private disappointment you do not confess even to yourself. The soul watches, it remembers, and it grows tired of waiting. From the midpoint of this reflection, clarity must begin. Suffering itself is not the enemy, blind suffering is. Pain that teaches is movement, pain that repeats is stagnation. The illusion does not come from suffering, but from identifying with it. When pain becomes me, transformation stops. The personality builds structures to accommodate misery instead of dissolving its cause. What you call suffering is not destiny. It is the result of a long, unconscious agreement to remain psychologically asleep while pretending to be awake. The illusion survives because it feels familiar, and familiarity feels safe. But safety purchased at the cost of truth is the most expensive bargain the soul ever makes. And if you continue, you will soon see what this bargain truly demands.
If this understanding awakens something inside you, subscribe to this channel, not for entertainment, but for those who are ready to see clearly, to confront illusion, and to reclaim their inner authority on the path of spiritual awakening.
Once the illusion is seen, it becomes uncomfortable. That discomfort is not danger, it is the first sign of honesty. The inner conflict now reveals itself. One part of you recognizes the falsehood, while another depends on it to function. This is not hypocrisy, it is fragmentation. The psyche learns to divide itself in order to endure what it no longer believes in. The illusion operates by rewarding compliance and punishing awareness. Each time you ignore your inner resistance, the habit strengthens. Each time you say, "This is fine," while something inside tightens, the mind learns that silence is safer than truth. Over time, the personality becomes an expert at rationalizing pain. It explains suffering instead of questioning it. This is how the mechanism survives. In esoteric terms, this is the dominance of the lower self. Not evil, not malicious, but conditioned. It seeks stability, recognition, continuity. It fears dissolution more than misery. The higher self does not shout. It waits, and its waiting is often mistaken for absence, but it is never absent. It observes every compromise. Consider a symbolic image, a man guarding a prison he forgot he built. Each day he reinforces the walls, improves the locks, perfects the routines. He believes he is maintaining order. One day he hears a knock from inside. The sound unsettles him, not because it is loud, but because it is familiar. He realizes the prisoner is himself. The conflict begins not when the door appears, but when he understands he has been defending it. This is the human pain beneath the illusion. You sense the door, you feel the inner knock, and still you hesitate. Not because freedom is unclear, but because it would require the death of the identity that learned to survive through endurance. Suffering has become proof of seriousness. Letting go feels irresponsible. This is the lie. From here, explanation must be simple. The illusion persists because it promises meaning through struggle. It tells you that pain validates existence. In reality, pain is only a message. When listened to, it dissolves. When worshipped, it multiplies. The mistake is not feeling pain. The mistake is building a life around it. The psyche fears silence because silence reveals unnecessary suffering. In silence, excuses collapse. The repetitive narrative loses power. This is why distraction feels like relief, not because it heals, but because it delays confrontation. The illusion thrives on delay. The occult teaching behind this is precise. Identification sustains experience. Whatever you continuously call yourself becomes your reality. If you identify as the one who endures, life gives you endurance. If you identify as the one who awakens, life rearranges accordingly. The law is neutral. It reflects, not judges. At this stage, you understand the error, but not yet the cost. You see the pattern, but still negotiate with it. This is natural. Transformation does not occur by force. It occurs when the illusion can no longer justify itself. And when that moment comes, suffering no longer asks to be explained, it asks to be released.
If this understanding awakens something inside you, subscribe to this channel, not for entertainment, but for those who are ready to see clearly, to confront illusion, and to reclaim their inner authority on the path of spiritual awakening.
When understanding becomes lucid, it is quiet. There is no dramatic breakthrough, no emotional climax, only a sober recognition. Much of your suffering was never required. It was maintained, protected, repeated, not by fate, but by habit. This realization does not comfort, it clarifies. The moral truth is simple and heavy. Suffering ends when it is no longer useful to the identity you protect. As long as pain serves a role proving depth, seriousness, loyalty, or worth, it remains. When that role collapses, pain loses its function, and what has no function cannot survive. This is where many retreat, not because the truth is false, but because it removes all alibis. You can no longer blame circumstances, people, or destiny. Responsibility returns to its rightful place, not as guilt, but as power. The power to stop repeating what no longer teaches. The esoteric consequence of ignoring this teaching is subtle erosion. Life does not punish, it stagnates. The same lessons appear in different forms, the same disappointments wear new faces. The soul grows impatient, not angry. It waits less. And when the inner call is ignored long enough, numbness replaces suffering. That is the final warning. To live this teaching is not to chase happiness, it is to stop betraying awareness. When pain arises, you listen. When it repeats, you question. When it teaches, you change. This is not optimism, it is discipline. Spiritual maturity is not endurance without awareness, it is responsiveness without illusion. The higher self does not demand perfection, it demands honesty. It does not ask you to escape the world, it asks you to stop lying to yourself within it. When that lie ends, suffering loses its stage. It may appear, but it cannot stay. This is why the promise is dangerous, not because suffering ends, but because excuses do. You can no longer return to unconscious endurance once clarity settles. You may hesitate, you may resist, but you will not forget. And this is the final truth. Suffering ends because life becomes gentle, but because you stop offering yourself as its shelter.